Hi, welcome to the LSI Behind the Wind podcast. For 50 years, the LSI team has dedicated themselves to the science of business development. We've seen the impact of our work and how it's evolved into economic development and now social impact work. I'm Lauren Lane, the Marketing and Communications Manager for LSI and one of the producers of this podcast. Thanks for joining us today. In this episode, Sean is joined by Terry Morris to discuss our contract with the State of Utah's Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or also known as PTAC. Terry is our long-term PTAC manager and has been working with the LSI team for close to 2 decades. If you have any questions about the PTAC team or how your business can get involved with winning funding and getting more involved with the government, please email us at social@lsiwins.com. We'll also link this email in the show notes. We'd love to stay in touch with you and answer any and all questions you might have. Thanks for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed this episode.
All right, Terry, thanks for being with me this afternoon on this episode. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you for a number of reasons. But before we start talking about some of the topics that I want to explore with you, we start our discussion by giving some background information on you and how you and I became acquainted all those years ago.
You bet. Well, so I started my career, as you know, early, 18 years old, went into the Air Force as a civilian, started out as a F4 sheet metal mechanic. If anybody remembers the F4,
you're old.
Then I'm old.
They're old. If you remember the F4, you're old.
But, back in those days, I was a lot more limber and smaller, and I could crawl around anywhere inside that airplane. So they used me for that purpose, to crawl around the F4, and I was bucking rivets and doing all kinds of different things, running cable, and good experience, excellent experience.
Well, and the F4 at the time, that was the premier weapon system. It was the best asset that the Air Force had at the time.
Absolutely, I agree. And anyway, I spent about 8 years doing that. And then I moved into electronics and was able to go into micro mini electronic repair. So I was basically working under a microscope, removing and changing chips and going into a multi-layer board and fixing problems inside the layers. And I did that for a number of years, and that became my career, is avionics electronics. And I probably spent 20 years in avionics and electronics as a technician, and then moved up my way up into management over time. And during that period of time, I also spent time over in Okinawa, Japan, as the electronics group has a squadron over there that does repairs for the PACAF theater. And so I was able to go over there and do a lot of work for PACAF. And then coming home, participated in the closure of the 2 bases, Kelly and McClellan, and helped transition that workload to Hill, and then eventually moved into plans and programs and wing business ops, and then got my GS-15 during that period of time. And I ended up actually running a squadron, which is a little bit unusual, simply because the landing gear squadron was such a difficult place to work. And so I was a GS-15 in the landing gear squadron before I retired.
Tell me how long you were in Japan. You were there a long time.
13 years. Yeah. 86 to 99.
And what an interesting time to be there. Before we move on, just talk about your experience being in Japan for a minute.
Well, I'll tell you what, one thing that I've always regretted, and there's reasons for it, is I never was able to wear the uniform. And going over to Okinawa, Japan, we supported the military. And I almost felt like at times I was in uniform by going, because we'd go to Osan, Korea, and Kunsan, Korea, and Suwon, Korea, all of those places to support the military, the F-16s, the F-15 in Kadena. And we were able to see things that you can't see here. You were able to see the Korean Air Force and the U.S. Air Force on the ready. Patriot missiles pointed towards the north. Scary stuff when you really sit and think about it. So the DMZ up in South Korea. I mean, there's just so many things that I was able to experience that most people don't get to do because of that tour. Not to mention the cultural experiences of living in Okinawa. It was amazing.
What is your thinking back on this? What were some of the special times that you spent in Japan that reminiscing about being there? Is there something in particular that stands out?
Well, probably the highlight for me was we climbed Mount Fuji.
Yeah.
That was an amazing trek. It was difficult, but it's almost a spiritual experience to go up there. And what's interesting is it's one of those things that Japanese have to do once in their lifetime. And they say, you know, it's a privilege to do once in a lifetime. It's a fool if you do it more than once. But it was amazing. So that stands out for me. But I think living amongst the Japanese people and you know, communicating with them, partying with them. I mean, we'd sit out on the blacktop and have sushi and just party with the people downtown. It was just amazing for me. Made a lot of good friends that way.
Well, and your kids were there with you, and I'm sure that was incredible being there and giving your kids that experience. I mean, talk about that.
Yeah, I think, and again, that just brought another thing to mind, is the diversity that they experience with not just Japanese people, but, you know, with the military. We had, you know, everyone of color there, and there was times when the kids would have a birthday party, and there'd be, you know, white girl, black girl, Filipino, Japanese, Korean, Hispanic, and they were just playing together in the diversity and it didn't matter. I love that. And they grew up in that culture. And I think that in itself was amazing for them. As a matter of fact, as you probably already know, they have both been over there for the last 2 years.
Right.
And one of them just came home last week. So I got a grandbaby now at home.
Okay, congratulations. That's amazing.
And they loved growing up over there. It was an amazing experience, and they'd go back and live there forever, I think.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Just as a side, Terry, I've been meaning to tell you this, that I'm reading a book called In Praise of Shadows, and it's an essay on Japanese aesthetics, and I'll as soon as I'm done, I'll send it to you because I think you will love it.
Oh yeah. The culture over there, we could learn a lot from them.
I agree. So you and I, when you came back, you said you were working on the McClellan and Kelly transition of workloads in XP at that time, I think, right?
Yeah, well, just after the transition had been completed, I went to XP. But during the transition, I actually worked with then Colonel Bush.
That's yeah.
On the transition, and then eventually moved to XP.
Right. So that was late 1990s, 1998. When did you come back from Japan? 90.
Yeah, I came back from Japan in 99.
99. So that's
transition had already started, of course.
So 25 years is that's when you and I started working together.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, and I'll never forget the day that at the time it was Mo, and maybe this was his job. He called me up and he says, "Hey, are you looking for a job?" I hadn't even retired. Well, what do you got?
That was his job, and yes, and so. Well, and we had watched what you were doing within XP, and even with General Bush before that, and said, we want Terry on our team. So
appreciate it. It's been a beautiful ride for me.
It's been amazing. So you I mean, the transition, there was a lot of challenges there. And you did some fun things in XP when you had XP. Then you moved into commodities, and I can't remember, did you go right into landing gear out of XP?
No, I actually went in, I was the deputy group director there, civilian. So up there's a military and a civilian. So I went in under Pat as the deputy.
And that was that LIK?
At the time it was
LIC,
yeah,
LG,
LIC, yeah.
LIC,
Won't
yeah.
forget.
So, and then you were there, and then eventually took over landing gear. We worked very closely together then, and then I said, "Why don't you come do something else?" And you've been here ever since. It's been amazing.
And we've done a lot of landing gear.
We've done a lot of landing gear. We've done some other cool things as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really want to dive into is our long-term contract with the state of Utah, where we are their partner in the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, PTAC. And we've got a lot of contracts with the state. I think it's been interesting to look back on over the last 50 years. It really is, of our company's history, it's really only been in the last decade that we've really had this incredible body of work within the state of Utah. It has been fairly recent. People think, oh, it's a Utah company and all of your work's been in the state. And it really has only been in the last decade and a half that we've developed this relationship with these multiple contracts that we have with the state of Utah in the various agencies. But you have been such an incredible leader of this engagement over the last several years. And I really want to dive into what this looks like. Maybe talk about what the program is, the history, and I've got a lot of questions for you on this program as well.
So as you pointed out, PTAC is the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, and it was authorized to become an entity back in 1985. And the goal was, at the time, was to help small businesses and large businesses become capable to do work within the government. They were looking for more opportunities for the smaller companies. I mean, they had plenty of DoD defense contractors, so they were looking for the smaller companies. And so at that time, PTAC became available. There's a PTAC now in 49 states. And I think the one in Utah, the PTAC we have here in Utah, is a little more unique in some cases than some of the other states. I think it's a lot more mature here than the others. So 1985 is when that began. We have been associated with PTAC since 2006 in one way or another. Right. It started out that LSI had a couple of 3 or 4 one-year contracts. And at that time, you probably recall, this was a little bit before my time, you had to go down to the legislature and lobby for the money.
And it was painful.
That's what I'm being told. And then, of course, after a few successes, we got 3-year contracts, which made it a little bit more easy, although you still had to justify the work that we were doing. And today, we're in the second of 2 5-year contracts. We just completed a 5-year contract in July, and we're on the second one now. That's been modified, as you know, again, a little bit. This is minus grants now and a large business line item. But at any rate, it's the work here has been fantastic, I think, and we're doing a lot of really good things. LSI does a lot of really good things for the state of Utah, both small and large business. And the kicker of all of this is it's free. It does not cost them anything. And what I like about this, I'll just use GSA as an example. If you go out and try to have a company out in the industry, do GSA for you. It's going to cost you anywhere from $10,000 to $16,000. And we are doing it here at LSI for free for state of Utah companies.
So the history you mentioned, it started in 1985, and the reason it started was that the Congress had given mandates to all of the federal agencies, not just Department of Defense, but DOD and the FedCiv agencies on small business contracting objectives, and they had never met an objective. And so they came up with this idea, what if we provide funding to help get small businesses engaged in federal contracting? And DLA eventually became the lead for this program and still is today, as I recall. The DLA administers the PTAC program. That the mechanics are, and correct me if any of this is wrong, Terry, but the mechanics are that there is a congressional appropriation every year through DLA that these programs throughout the U.S. will receive federal funding that is then matched by state funding or other funding. It doesn't necessarily need to be state. In fact, there are some PTAC programs that are funded by foundations and colleges and other entities, but typically it's a state match on this DLA funding that provides the resources necessary to help companies within that region win federal contracts.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And as you said, within that region, it's free to the small business that has an interest in doing business with the federal government.
That's right. And even large businesses can be PTAC clients as well, although not as many that participate. Typically it is small businesses. And DLA does have a huge role in how we operate, of course, as you can imagine.
So walk us through how our team, the LSI team, interfaces with these PTAC clients. And one of the things I just love about your philosophy, Terry, and your team is that they really love these companies, and they've developed these relationships over the last 15 years that are just incredible, deep relationships and friendships with these companies. But I mean, walk us through, if you are a Utah company or you're a PTAC, you're looking at PTAC in other states, how would you even go about this?
Well, yeah. So first of all, the team that we have, I think one of the things that's important is most of them are former contracting experts. So we got pricing and contracting and a little bit of everything in the contracting realm. So that right there helps us communicate with the small businesses that we deal with. One of the per our contract, one of the things that we do is we do RFP support and cost and pricing support and our interpretation, and our consultants, they actually work with these companies one-on-one for a long period of time. It may be over years, actually. Some of them we've had for years. And so they do create a strong bond, and they love their clients, just like, if they were in business with them or if they were working for them. And so they do the best they can do to make them successful. And they're very adamant about that. They want to see those companies become successful. And as a result of that, we've had some great success stories over the years with companies that started out as a small business and through the work that we do with finding them opportunities, helping them with proposal support, red teaming, those kinds of things, have eventually graduated and become quite prosperous in what they do. One example is Archer. You're familiar with them.
Very.
Another example is AIS right here in Ogden, who's doing a lot of work now for the Air Force in the paint world. And there's many others. And I find this true in the work I do for GSA. I become close with those companies, the ones that stick with it. And it comes to the point where you feel like you work for them.
Right.
And so I think the work that's been laid out for us to do for these clients has made a huge difference to the state in the way of tax revenue and jobs and everything that we as LSI look to do as well. I think the program is a huge success from my perspective. I don't have numbers that I can give to you in terms of how many jobs we've created over the last 20 years or how much tax revenue we've helped provide, but it's significant.
I love that when we were approached by the state to partner with the PTAC program, that they really wanted us to focus on helping companies win business, and that it wasn't just, we're going to go through the motions, we're going to help you get a DUNS number, and we're going to help you with this. But their focus has been, we want this program to have lasting impact, lasting economic and social impact within the state of Utah, and that it's about winning new business and creating jobs. And it's been fun to be a part of that.
It is. It's a lot of fun. And I think that's one of the reasons why our contract term has expanded over the years, is because of the trust they have in the work that's been being done. So it's much easier today to execute a 5-year contract than it was back in the day when you were doing one contract, because they trust us.
Oh, that's right.
And they know they're going to get a good a product from us. So
exactly. We were in such a great position all those years ago, and why I think it's been so successful is that we've had subject matter experts embedded within these organizations across the U.S. that have been able to identify opportunities and help companies win this business through our capture and proposal methodology. And you know this, Terry, but for a lot of the early history of our company, we didn't work with a lot of small businesses. They just couldn't afford our team and the expertise that we had built. So most of the client base that we had been working with, especially when I joined the company 30 years ago, it had been Fortune 500 companies. It had been large businesses, large foreign businesses, large businesses in the U.S. that needed capture, proposal, and program execution support. What this concept did, and really has become a benchmark for other PTAC organizations, is really changed the thinking of PTAC not just as being a conduit for positioning companies to win business, but actually this is the methodology, and these small businesses got to use members of our team and the LSI methodology that all of these years had been. We'd worked for Boeing and Lockheed and Northrop and AT&T and IBM and these big companies. Now a small business that wanted to capture construction contracts or software, whatever it is, had access to that same talent base for free.
Exactly. What a wonderful thing for them.
So it's for watching this over the last almost 2 decades now, I guess, it's been exciting to see how we have been able to scale the LSI methodology to small businesses, even startups, and then developing these long relationships with these companies under this program that has just been fantastic. Terry, I meant to tell you, I was with a client yesterday, and they said they owe a lot of the success that they've achieved through the Utah PTAC program and members of your team, which is fun to hear.
That's fantastic.
What? Let's talk about GSA for a minute, because this was fairly new, a new element of the program about 5 years ago, I would guess, and it's become such a critical conduit for helping small businesses capture revenue, capture contracts with the federal government. Talk about what is the GSA schedule, who qualifies, how would you recommend a business go about looking at GSA as a contract vehicle for new business?
Well, yeah, GSA, General Services Administration, is what GSA stands for. And as you know, General Services Administration is a government agency, and the GSA schedule is just a piece of what GSA does. The schedule is basically a pre-vetted contract for companies that sell commercial products and services. Has nothing to do with the federal yet. It's just commercial products and services. And so that's one of the criteria to begin with, is it must be sold commercially. Companies have to be in business at least 2 years. And there's some exceptions now that can mitigate that. And they have to have, 2 years of financials. They got to have a past performance of some sort. That's about it. And if they sell commercially, they got 2 years in business, they have a good financial record, they can become a GSA contract holder. And there's a significant process you have to go through to apply for a GSA schedule. It's just like any government program. They want to know a company's history. They want to know exactly what you're going to sell. There's a pricing aspect of this. GSA wants to be have the best price of all your commercial customers. If you give a commercial customer a discount, GSA wants that same discount.
Right.
And that's all pre-vetted. So by the time that you get to the end and submit the RFP, submit the proposal, then GSA already has negotiated with you, so to speak, and the price that you finally end up with is what will end up on the GSA Advantage and the GSA program. And then at that point in time, then anybody in a federal agency, all the hundreds of federal agencies out there, as well as academic and state and local government agencies, can access GSA to buy products and services. So and there's a lot that goes into it in the way of marketing and things like that. But if you're successful, you can do very, very well because it's pre-vetted. You don't have to do source selections and all of that you do on an open market RFP. So it's just another vehicle for the government to use to expedite their contracting efforts.
And I think a lot of companies have a misunderstanding of the GSA vehicle. One myth is that it's only for commodities. And I mean, when I say commodities, there's a lot of companies that think, this is office products and it's, janitorial supplies and things like that. And that's just not the case. And then there's a myth that it's only for products and not services. So maybe talk about both of those myths, because I hear that a lot. Why would I pursue a GSA schedule? I don't sell commodities, and that's just false.
It's very false. Again, it's anything that is sold commercially. So if you are selling engineering services, or if you're selling financial services or training or teaching, or you want to have people, if you want a staff service, all of that is available through GSA. On the other hand, if you want to armor a vehicle, if you want to sell, you can't sell bullets, but you can sell gun cases, you can sell ammo cases, you can sell pencils, you can sell desks, you can sell computers, electronics, janitorial services. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Anything that you can get commercially is on GSA. Now, for the purposes of us helping a customer on a product or service GSA schedule, they are different. And there's certain things we have to do differently for a services schedule than we have to do for a product schedule. But the myth is wrong either way. GSA mass schedules sell anything that's sold commercially that isn't military focused. And I have to put that caveat in there because they don't sell guns and bullets and things like that.
But I hear this a lot, and so this is one of the elements that LSI has been very adept at over the last 50 years, and we've incorporated it now into our PTAC program, and it has been tremendous. Terry, is there anything that stands out? I mean, what is the craziest product or service that you have worked under the GSA schedule?
Wow. That's a good question. I guess one that comes to mind is these English guys. They're Americans, but they're from England. They had this toilet riser that you could sit on, and it would when you're done doing your business, it would jack you up so you could stand up. So that was a crazy one.
Yes.
We moved forward with it. I don't think they ever finished it, but that was one that was quite crazy. Let me think. We had a garbage can on there. It was a similar situation where, I don't know, it was radio controlled or something, and the lid would pop up and you could throw the trash in there. People are inventive about a lot of things. And I've had a lot of really cool things, as well. These portable cement mixers you see rolling around. The people can go get a thing of cement and it's got the tumbler on it. There's a company at Salt Lake that manufactures those that actually can go into the Africa, into the regions where you can't get a truck, and they can build things, using this cement mixer it can drive itself and do some amazing things in areas that you wouldn't typically be able to a vehicle. So that's a pretty cool one. The list goes on and on and on. And I wish I should have prepared for that because I've done literally hundreds of them.
Yep. And
I've got probably right now, I bet I've got about 50 in the queue. So I'm in different stages of helping them, So I can't remember all that I've done, but those are a couple of interesting ones for sure. A steel. I had a company that made stills.
Like liquor stills.
They are liquor stills, but they were using them for distilling water. But they would work for liquor too. And I actually did get them a GSA contract because the government, believe it or not, was buying these things to distill water. So, and they're out of Brigham City. So that's another one. It's been fun. GSA is fun because you get to know these people.
Right.
I go right to their business and sit down with them like this and work with them, and you get to know them. Have lunch with them. And
one of the things that we are prohibited from working under the PTAC engagement is proposals. And, we hear this a lot. Why I just don't understand it. This is a big part of the acquisition process. And why is it that DLA has excluded proposal development as a element of the PTAC program. And I mean, having done this for so long, I know the reason. I mean, you can really go down. I mean, proposals it's like building a house. You can build, a 12,000 square foot house or a 1,000 square foot house, and it's everything in between, and they can be complex and require so much labor. It is, as we all know, the proposal development process, the business development life cycle is the most labor-intensive part of the process. So it makes sense, but I think this is another element of what we've done well is just advising our PTAC clients how to be efficient in their proposal development, giving them the methodology, and we've even done a lot of training around not capture and proposal development and program execution. And do you want to talk a bit about some of the ways that we have incorporated the LSI methodology into the program, even in the proposal development aspect of the process?
Yeah, we I think for every proposal support referral that we receive, we use the LSI methodology, even though we, as you pointed out, we're limited as to what we can and cannot do because of DLA's requirements. But we can still go in and, as you said, we can help a client on the proposal development process. They have to do it themselves, but we can look at it and say, no, you're not following the guidelines like you should. You're not answering the questions that the RFP is asking you to answer. And so we can, just like do in a normal capture proposal development scenario for LSI, we do the same thing here. We just cannot write it for them. We can't do any of that kind of work. We're upstairs, I say upstairs, but for LSI, we can do all of it. We're limited, but we can do red team reviews, and we follow the same process that we would follow in LSI. And same with the proposal development piece. We follow the same process, we just can't write it. And so I feel like, the things that we do here as a company, we've been able to successfully incorporate into a limited proposal development for our clients that get the service for free.
I mean, it's such a special program, and this history that we have supporting Utah's small businesses it's been tremendous. One of the strategies and the focus that the corporation has had over the last 2 years is the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And as part of this $1.6 trillion that is being pushed out to these federal agencies, who are then in turn pushing this funding to states and municipalities, they have been given direction that this funding needs to be contracted with small businesses, 8A companies, Alaskan Native, Native American, Native Hawaiian companies, women-owned companies, companies in hub zones of SDVO, small disadvantaged veteran-owned businesses. So there is a huge metric that is being tracked around the IIJ contracting, and we see that it's an opportunity for companies who have never done work with the federal government to connect through IIJA. And the way they're going to do that, the easiest way to do that is through these PTAC organizations. So It's something that we think is going to be a critical element of the federal agencies meeting their small business objectives, not just small business, but all of the mandate objectives tied to this federal contracting, and it is significant.
Yeah, I think I've already seen a little bit of that take place with GSA.
Right.
So in GSA, there's hundreds of categories, and for the most part, they're not set aside for any one particular socioeconomic group. But what I am seeing is now they have set aside categories specific to socioeconomic categories. You know, that they don't spell it out, but I'm seeing more of those now than there used to be. So I think that's already kind of started.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to escalate over the next 18 months. Most of these funds need to be obligated by September 30th of 2023. So these agencies are scrambling to put a $1.6 trillion on contract over the next 18 months. That's a lot.
Yeah, I would imagine that maybe Desiree is seeing some activity in the grant world.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's PTAC's a great place to start. And if you have never done work with the federal government but have an interest, it is everything. We've talked about a few things, construction. We've talked about software, commodities, services. It is everything. And it's likely if you are selling a product or service to a business or to even consumer goods, there's an opportunity to work with the federal government capturing federal dollars, and PTAC is such a great conduit to get you into federal contracting.
It really is. And there's a lot of training that PTAC does and that the LSIs does as well. You know, and part of our contract is to develop training for small businesses to understand GSA, to understand pricing and how wide area workflow works and things like that.
Right.
Things that companies need to know if they're going to work with the government. So it's a great resource for just those kinds of things.
And you brought up training. That this is an excellent way for state and municipal entities that want to have impact to a broad spectrum of companies, either virtually or in person, and we're doing both. So that's a great point. And Terry, we're doing a lot of work with other states and municipalities, and they've asked us about this history with the state of Utah and how we have augmented the PTAC program within the state. If you're a state or a municipality or a college that has responsibility for PTAC in your region, let us know. We would love to give you the history and details of how we have successfully built this PTAC program in the state of Utah, which I think is the benchmark for all PTAC programs across the U.S.
I agree.
Terry, this has been fantastic. It's been fun having this conversation with you. As we wrap up, talk about some of the things that you do when you're not working for LSI and some of your interests and hobbies.
Well, I think most of the people in the company know that I've been trying to be a rock star for like 68 years. So music is it's not my first love, but it's one of my loves for sure. And I know I share that with you, Sean. And, I still play music, especially this time of year, probably every weekend. I go out and entertain all over the West here. And so this time of year, I stay pretty busy with music. Those of you that didn't know that I play the keyboards, and I play piano, organ, and synthesizer and harmonica, and anything that's got keys on it, I try to play with. So I love that. I love to, as you know, I love to do stained glass windows and So I design and create stained glass windows. One of the things that I started to do is create a little small stained glass window that is actually a cancer ribbon. And I build those ribbons for the different kind of cancers that people have. And there's more of them, more colors than we would want, actually. And so if I know somebody that's had stomach cancer or whatever, I build a ribbon for them out of stained glass in the color of that cancer, and then just give it to them. And I've done quite a few of those. Unfortunately, had to do a lot of those. So I love doing stained glass windows. And then if my grandbabies were here, that's my favorite thing, is to have them over and cook dinner for them on Sunday and do those kinds of things. So that's what I do in my spare time. And I do all kinds of other things. I love building things and different projects, taking care of, take care of 2 houses, and so I stay busy.
I love listening to you play. You're such a talented musician, and it's fun. You were at my house not long ago and just sat down at my piano and started playing this, no music, just started playing this amazing series of pieces, and it was incredible. But you are a hard rock, rocker as well. The name of your band is Rough Stock.
It is. It's called Rough Stock.
And you do a lot of performances. How many performances do you do every year?
Yeah, this year, I think so far we've got 30 or so on the books. So it's typically 30 to 40, which isn't too bad for a bunch of amateur old guy musicians.
And your work is so broad. It's country, and it's you guys have a unique interest in Southern rock and some of the early rock pieces. You've just got this big portfolio that you play, which I think is fun.
Yep. Yeah, we got a great group of guys that's had a lot of experiences, and I think that makes a big difference. A couple of them's got music degrees from the University of Utah, or Utah State, I'm sorry. And so I mean, it's we do everything from show tunes to Jimi Hendrix to Garth Brooks. I mean.
So anybody listening, check them out. Rough Stock. They are fantastic, and they perform all over the West. And go listen to them. We'll put a link in this episode to the band's website, Terry, and whatnot. So it's fun listening to you play with your band, but I also love just listening to you sit down, and you play a lot of different music, and including masterwork, classical music, and you're so talented. It's amazing.
Well, I appreciate it, Sean, and love playing the piano. Your piano. It's an amazing piano.
I love. I wish I played it like you. Well, Terry, thank you so much for doing this, and for those of you listening to this episode, if you're a small business in the state of Utah or within other states where LSI is at, this may be a good avenue for you to be exposed and begin capturing federal contracts. If you're a state or municipal entity and you're looking at increasing the effectiveness of your PTAC program, we've got a lot of tools that we have developed over the last 2 decades. Connect with us, and we'll help you put together an amazing PTAC program similar to this work that we've done in Utah over the last 16 years. Terry, thanks so much. This has been great.
Yep. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. It's been fun.